Canadians enjoy access to safe food at relatively low prices. Canada is a net exporter of food, and our food system is strong. Yet, we face many important challenges. In a country of 36 million people, about 1 million households experience food insecurity in a year. Canadians living in poverty, single-parent families, and geographically isolated communities are especially vulnerable. There are rising rates of obesity and diet-related diseases. There are also well-known environmental implications of the food system. Demand for food globally is increasing, with implications for an exporting nation such as Canada. Additionally, the Canadian government is committed to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Land rights, economic development, cooperation, food and food security are at the heart of that reconciliation. A Food Policy for Canada is a first-of-its-kind initiative by the federal government. To consider these issues as we develop a food policy, we worked on 4 food-related themes: food security, health and food safety, environmental sustainability, and growth of the agriculture and food sector. The consultative process in developing a food policy for Canada was a massive undertaking. We wanted to hear from a diverse range of participants in the consultations: industry, including agriculture, food processing, and fisheries, organizations with an interest in food security, public health, and the environment, national Indigenous organizations and communities, subnational governments, provinces, territories, municipalities, academic experts, and individual Canadians, our citizens. Consultations were launched in 2017, starting with an online survey that ran for 3 months and tallied the views of 45,000 Canadians, 40,000 of which completely filled the survey that took 30 minutes to fill, making it quite the commitment on their part. We then had a National Food Policy Summit in Ottawa, the national capital, in June of 2017 that grouped 300 leading stakeholders and experts dealing in the areas of food security, public health, environment, and agriculture to share their views and to discuss food policy issues. We had consultations from coast to coast to coast across the country with 6 regional events where we heard from about 350 participants, revealing that food issues vary by region, particularly in a country the size of Canada. 29 members of Parliament held their own consultation events in their ridings. Written submissions were also invited. There were 23 community events organized by Food Secure Canada. The House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food had hearings with 52 invited witnesses. But this was something the government couldn't do alone. We worked with many outside organizations. For the largest events, we hired a professional external facilitator to help build the co-creation approach and ensure that participants' concerns were heard. The government also reached out to 5 of our national Indigenous organizations that represent Indigenous peoples at the national level to discuss and identify culturally appropriate ways of engaging them on the development of a food policy. We worked closely with 3 of these organizations: the Assembly of First Nation, Inuit Tapirit Kanatami, and the Native Women's Association of Canada, who all chose to conduct their own self-led engagement on the food policy. We also participated in community-based engagement events hosted by other organizations representing Indigenous people. Importantly, the government engaged Food Secure Canada, a key civil society organization, to bring together community organizations at 23 events across the country.
Within the public service, the initiative was impressive too. We took an all-of-government approach. Food-related issues cut across the mandates of many departments and agencies with respect to health, to employment, to industry, and to the environment. And there are a number of complementary initiatives that directly and indirectly link to the Food Policy for Canada. These include the development of a poverty reduction strategy, the launch of a new Canadian agricultural partnership, improvements to Nutrition North Canada, work on reducing food waste, and the development of the healthy eating strategy. All of these other initiatives, and many more across government, in turn have their own consultation processes where large numbers of Canadians and stakeholders have been engaged. In all, there were 20 federal departments and agencies involved in the Food Policy for Canada.
For the past 10 years, through projects like the People's Food Policy Project and the Eat, Think, Vote campaign and the visit of the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food to Canada, we have engaged citizens and organizations in food policy debates. So we were really, really thrilled when we saw the mandate letter of the Minister of Agriculture instructing him to develop a national food policy for Canada. And we wrote to him and to many other ministers urging a whole of government approach where the equity, sustainability, and health aspects of this question would be considered in addition to the agricultural and fishery and economic aspects. And we started to equip our members to become ready to engage in the food policy consultations. We issued a discussion paper outlining what the issues were for us, which many of our members commented on and collaborated on. We came up with 5 big ideas that we advocated to the government. We undertook to prepare a series of community engagement events that we called Recipes for a Better Food System, and we designed a toolkit and a methodology so that it would be really easy for community groups at the local level to engage their members and their constituencies in this debate. And those are often voices that we don't hear in other, say, formal government consultation processes. Very grassroots, so sometimes it would be in a university setting with students or in a trade union setting with workers, or in a remote community with people who are having trouble to access food there. Basically voices that would not necessarily otherwise be heard. We organized 23 of those events. We also did a bunch of webinars and discussions with our members. We participated in the parliamentary hearings of the Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food and encouraged many of our members to participate as well. And we convened a multi-stakeholder forum with people from industry, the farming community, the philanthropic community, and the NGO sector to look at establishing a new mechanism, a National Food Policy Council, where some of these discussions could go on over the longer term. Because it was pretty obvious to us that a short consultation period of 3 or 4 months was not enough to have all the debates that needed to be had, and we needed to create new structures where some of that conversation could continue in a formal way. As usual, in the NGO sector, we are stretched in terms of finances, in terms of personnel, and in terms of time, and there were challenges in that regard in this consultation as well. But it was overwhelmingly a very positive process, one where we had great collaboration with different governmental departments, and we're very hopeful that we're going to see a food policy that reflected some of the ideas we put forward.
A What We Heard report on the consultations will be issued. The consultations are providing valuable input into the development of the food policy. We are all very excited to be part of this initiative. It is a first of its kind for the Canadian government.